What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out to all of you who have been sending me your fantasy teams on Twitter. It's been a lot of fun to run through them with you guys. When it comes to fantasy, wide receivers are by far the most fun because of their unpredictability. Sure, you have the guys you know will be studs, but you're more likely to find a future receiving stud in later rounds or even waivers as compared to any other position. This is our list of the top 25 fantasy football wide receivers in 2017. Remember, as we said in our quarterback and running back video, this is as much about players' draft day value as it is about their skill. Number 25, Alshon Jeffery. We're reluctant to put Alshon in our top 25, but the fact that every other expert has them in their top 20 kind of peer pressures us a bit. He's had monster seasons in 2013 and 14, but he's been a bust ever since. He's failed to reach 900 yards or 5 touchdowns in each of the last 2 seasons, while missing a total of 11 games in the process, with a new team and new playbook to have to adjust to, and with all of his injury concerns and inconsistency issues, you're better off letting someone else take a chance on him in the late 3rd or early 4th round. Number 24, Larry Fitzgerald. He's 34. He's old, but God, is he consistent. Fitz has eclipsed the 100 reception and 1,000-yard marks 2 seasons in a row. He's played in 16 games in 8 of his last 9 seasons. We don't know when he's going to slow down, but for now, there's no reason to believe he will this year. Plus, he's one hell of a locker room presence, which I guess doesn't mean anything in fantasy, but I don't know. I just love him. Number 23, Stefon Diggs. If there's anything stopping Diggs from being great, it's his health. Last season, he was on the injury report or out for 10 of the Vikings' 16 games. In the 6 games he played in which he wasn't on the injury report, Diggs averaged 9.3 receptions and 107 yards per game. He'll be a major fantasy contributor if he stays healthy. Number 22, Golden Tate. Tate was good, but not really great in 2016, finishing as the number 22 ranked wide receiver in standard leagues. We kind of expect more of the same from him in 2017. He had a super slow start in 2016, but in the 11 games of the season he played, he had over 900 yards and 4 touchdowns. If he were consistent throughout the season, Tate would have finished with over 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns, and like 170 fantasy points. It's pretty good. Number 21, Allen Robinson. On talent alone, Robinson should be a top 10 wide receiver, but his quarterback brings him down. He went from 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns in 2015 to 883 yards and 6 touchdowns on the same number of targets. Will we get the 2015 Blake Bortles or the 2016 Blake Bortles? I'm thinking it's more going to be along the lines of the 2016 version. Number 20, Martinez Bryant. He's played in 21 career NFL games. 10 of those have resulted in double-digit fantasy points. He also has 14 touchdowns in those 21 career games. If he plays the whole season, his past numbers have shown that he could produce like a wide receiver 1. He just has to learn how to stay on the field. I think he's going to be a great 4th or 5th round option. Number 19, Terrelle Pryor. Pryor was a shock in his first full season as wide receiver, finishing 18th in fantasy points. He now moves to a more pass-happy offense with a better quarterback situation, but Kirk Cousins has been known to spread the ball out more. Whether this move helps or hurts Pryor remains to be seen, making it tough to move him up further in this list. Number 18, Kelvin Benjamin. Benjamin's 2016 was labeled a disappointment, but he still finished 20th among fantasy wideouts, putting him comfortably in wide receiver 2 territory. Remember that he missed all of 2015 with a torn ACL, and the Panthers as a team were just a huge pile of disappointment in 2016. There have been concerns about his weight and conditioning, but he looked great in the preseason and appears to have shed those concerns. Number 17, Michael Crabtree. Crabtree was fantasy's 12th best wide receiver in 2016. That's thanks in large part to his 21 red zone targets, which were the 6th most in the NFL. As long as Carr is healthy and the Raiders' offense continues to improve, Crabtree should continue to be about as solid of a wide receiver 2 option as you'll find. Number 16, Keenan Allen. Allen missed 26 games during his first 4 seasons in the league. That being said, in 2015, he was on pace for over 1,500 yards and 190 targets. He appears to be on the cusp of breaking into the wide receiver 1 category. He just needs to stay healthy. Number 15, Demaryius Thomas. For the first time in 5 seasons, Demaryius Thomas failed to record 1,300 yards. But hey, he's dealt with shaky quarterback play for the past 2 seasons and has still topped 1,000 yards on both occasions. If quarterback play can improve this season, so can Thomas's numbers. Number 14, DeAndre Hopkins. In 2015, Hopkins managed to put up over 1,500 yards and 11 touchdowns with the likes of TJ Yates, Brandon Weeden, Ryan Mallett, and Brian Hoyer throwing him the ball. Brock Osweiler in 2016, it was tough. He saw a major dip in fantasy points. His QB situation still isn't great, but maybe he can be better. Number 13, Vontae Adams. Here's an interesting stat from Matthew Berry. The second most targeted Packers receiver over the last 3 years is averaging over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns per season. Adams stepped into that role last year and he finished 7th among fantasy wideouts. That's life when Aaron Rodgers is throwing passes to you. Number 12, Brandon Cooks. He hasn't exactly been lighting it up in the preseason, but he's still the best receiver Brady has had since Randy Moss. He finished as the 8th best wideout last year after finishing 11th in 2015. Going from one potent offense to another should keep him in the wide receiver 1 conversation. Number 11, Doug Baldwin. Baldwin has finished in the top 10 wide receivers in each of the last 2 seasons. He saw his touchdown numbers get cut in half with Russell Wilson battling injuries for most of the season. But this season, Russ is healthy, so Baldwin should get back to double-digit touchdowns and surpass 1,200 yards. Number 10, Dez Bryant. Dez has missed 10 games over the past 2 seasons due to injuries. Despite that, he grew much more comfortable with Dak throwing him the ball as the season progressed in 2016 and averaged 73 yards and scored 6 touchdowns from week 10 to 16. He's a big red zone target on an offense that should visit the red zone often. Number 9, T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. led the league in receiving yards last season and finished number 5 among fantasy wide receivers. The problem is Andrew Luck's health. When Luck battled health issues in 2015, Hilton finished outside the top 20 fantasy wide receivers. If Andrew Luck is healthy, he's a few notches higher on this list, but at the moment it looks like Luck won't be ready for week 1, and there's no telling when he'll be back and how his arm will be when he gets back. Number 8, Amari Cooper. He caught only 5 touchdown passes last season, but still managed to finish as the number 12 wide receiver in fantasy. Let's all take a moment to remember he's only 23 years old. He's one of the most talented receivers in the league and should continue to move up the fantasy rankings every single year. Number 7, Michael Thomas. Thomas finished 9th among fantasy wideouts as a rookie in 2016. His teammate, Brandon Cooks, finished 8th. Cooks is now gone, which should mean for even more targets in 2017 for Thomas. Simple as that, he's a fantastic fantasy option. Number 6, AJ Green. AJ was on pace for over 1,500 yards before getting injured last season. It was the first time in his career that he failed to reach 1,000 yards. He's still on the right side of 30, and 2016 was only the second time he hasn't played in all 16 games. He's fully healthy and almost a sure bet to bounce back. Number 5, Jordy Nelson. Last year's number 2 fantasy wide receiver had a huge bounce back year after injury in 2015. His 14 touchdowns were easily the most in the league among receivers. When you're Aaron Rodgers' favorite target, you're guaranteed to be a top 5 fantasy wideout. Number 4, Odell Beckham. OBJ could probably be slotted anywhere from 1 to 4 on this list, but he comes in on the back end of that scale thanks to the ankle injury he sustained in the preseason. That injury shouldn't keep him out of week 1, but we're being cautious. He's recorded 90 receptions and 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns in each of his first 3 seasons in the league. With Marshall and Shepard there to keep opposing defenses honest, it should be another huge year for Beckham owners. Number 3, Julio Jones. Julio has only scored double-digit touchdowns once in his 6 seasons, but he's averaged 96.3 yards per game over his career, which is the most in NFL history. A bit of concern here is that he played all 16 games just twice in 6 seasons. His lack of touchdowns and injury history prevent him from being listed as the top receiver. But don't get me wrong, he's still a fantasy stud. Number 2, Mike Evans. He was fantasy's top wideout last year, and for good reason. He's recorded over 1,000 yards in each of his first 3 seasons, and he's improved that total by more than 100 yards each season. He and Jameis Winston should continue to get better together as they spearhead what should become a potent Tampa offense. Number 1, Antonio Brown. Was there really any doubt whatsoever? In the last 4 seasons, Brown has finished as the number 1 fantasy wideout twice, and he's been in the top 7 all 4 years. All he's averaging is 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns over the last 4 years. He's only missed just 1 game over that span. Between his stats and his clean bill of health, Antonio Brown has to be the number 1 receiver off your board in 2017. Who do you think is going to be a fantasy sleeper this year? Make sure to watch our quarterback, running back, and now you watched our wide receiver video before you draft. Make sure to join me in the comments below so that maybe you could help me with my league. Until next time, I'm Mike Cantalupo. Thanks for watching.